I have to start with a hard truth that surprises many of my patients. The fruit you reach for to feel safe can quietly push your blood pressure and your blood sugar in the wrong direction, especially when it is dried or intensely sweet. If you want a gentle way to protect your head and your heart starting tonight, trade the sticky sweet fruit for a small bowl of fresh berries with a little protein such as plain yogurt or a few almonds, because that simple pairing slows the sugar rush and lets your vessels relax. I am not here to frighten you. I am here because I have watched too many good people slide into dizziness, restless sleep, and a jumpy heartbeat without ever suspecting that their wholesome snack was part of the problem. The American Heart Association has long connected excess added sugar with higher blood pressure and vessel inflammation, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reminds us that steady blood sugar supports the tiny arteries that feed the brain as we grow older. Let me paint the picture in everyday terms. When fruit is dried or bred for extra sweetness, the water that usually buffers the sugar is missing, so every bite arrives faster. It is like trying to pour syrup through a paper straw. The liquid does not glide, it shoves. Your vessels brace for the surge, and repeated bracing slowly steals their flexibility, which is one of the quiet roads toward strokes. You may not register danger. You may call it aging. You may feel a skipped beat after a snack, or wake unrefreshed after an early bedtime, and never connect the dots. I used to believe that choosing fruit over cookies was always the higher road. Years in clinic taught me to watch the speed of sugar, not the label on the food. When my patients moved from dried mixes to fresh fruit with fiber and a touch of protein, their energy steadied, morning fog lifted, and pressure readings stopped bouncing. The National Kidney Foundation also reminds people with reduced kidney function to be thoughtful about certain high-potassium fruits and about portion size. The lesson is simple. Do not fear fruit. Tame the speed. Slow sugar spikes, and your body will meet you halfway. Keep the water and fiber by choosing fresh over dried on most days. Keep portions modest and place that fruit beside a little protein so your system has time to handle it. If that sounds simple, good. Health in later life rewards small moves repeated with care. Tonight, before bed, glance at your planned snack and ask a quieter question. Will this choice help my blood move smoothly to my brain, or will it make my vessels work harder than they need to? If doubt creeps in, reach for berries or a crisp apple slice with a spoon of plain yogurt and notice how you feel in the morning. I have seen that small decision change the tone of an entire day. And if you use medicines for blood pressure or blood sugar, steadier choices help those medicines work with you rather than against you. Stay with me, because next, I will show you which specific fruits deserve caution and how to keep the ones you love on your plate without paying a hidden price. Have you ever dismissed a light spell of dizziness after a snack, or told yourself that waking up tired was simply the price of age? What if those tiny signs were your blood vessels whispering for help? When the natural sugar in dried fruit or in extra sweet fresh fruit hits an older body, the rise in blood sugar is sharper and the fall more punishing. Picture a fragile balloon being overfilled one pump at a time. At first, nothing looks wrong. But with each burst of air, the skin weakens until one day it cannot stretch anymore. That is how the lining of your arteries responds when sugar surges strike again and again. The danger is not only in the sugar itself. Certain fruits, particularly the dried ones, can work against the very medicines many of us rely on. The Mayo Clinic warns that potassium-heavy fruits may interfere with diuretics. And Harvard researchers explain that concentrated fruit sugars can blunt the effect of drugs designed to steady blood sugar. The trouble is subtle. You may feel a skipped beat, a heavy fog in the morning, or a sudden dip in mood, yet never connect it to the fruit you thought was safe. I have sat with many people who believed age was the only culprit until we looked closer at their daily choices. Again and again, fruit was part of the hidden thread. That is why I want you to try a gentle shift. If your usual evening snack is a chewy dried fruit, Trade it for a crisp apple slice or a few fresh berries alongside a spoon of yogurt. Then listen to how your body greets you the next morning. This is not fear speaking. This is evidence you can gather from your own life. Health beyond 60 means catching the whispers before they turn into alarms. Hold on. Because the first fruit we will examine carries more risk than most people imagine, and it might already be in your breakfast bowl. That small handful of raisins sprinkled over your breakfast may look like a wise choice, yet it can strain your blood vessels faster than a slice of cake. When grapes dry out and turn into raisins, their water disappears but their sugar becomes concentrated, so every bite acts like a sudden rush. The American Diabetes Association points out that even natural sugar, when densely packed, can send blood sugar soaring. And Harvard Health explains that repeated surges slowly rob arteries of their flexibility. It would not be honest to ignore the bright side. Raisins do contain fiber, iron, and plant compounds that fight oxidation. They are easy to carry, they feel wholesome, and many people reach for them instead of candy with good intentions. But inside an older body, where insulin has grown sluggish and arteries already carry years of work, that small palm of raisins can feel like pulling a violin string too tight until it hums with tension. I remember a woman in her late 60s who proudly added raisins to her cereal every morning. She believed she had left pastries behind for good. Yet her blood sugar chart told another story. The peaks were sharp, the valleys draining, and her mornings were weighed down with fog. When she replaced those raisins with a few slices of pear and a scatter of blueberries, her energy evened out within weeks. She told me she felt relieved more than anything, as if her body had been waiting for her to listen. That is the lesson I want for you. Do not fear raisins, but treat them as an occasional accent, not a daily habit. When you crave sweetness in the morning, let fresh fruit bring it with its natural water and fiber, slowing the release and protecting your vessels. Try this one change and watch how your clarity and steadiness improve. And keep listening, because the next fruit wears the mask of a gentle summer companion, yet it can quietly interfere with how your heart keeps its rhythm. Cantaloupe looks and tastes like pure summer comfort, soft orange flesh that seems gentle and refreshing. Yet for many older bodies, it can quietly set the stage for a fluttering heart and drained energy. This melon is loaded with potassium, which is usually a gift, but when kidneys no longer filter as smoothly, the extra potassium lingers in the blood and disrupts the natural rhythm of the heart. The National Kidney Foundation warns that this buildup can trigger irregular beats that do not always feel dramatic at first, just a faint lightheadedness or a strange flutter in the chest. Add to that the sugar surge. Cantaloupe sits higher on the glycemic index than most people imagine, so a bowl after dinner can send blood sugar soaring and then crashing, leaving fog and fatigue in its wake. To be fair, cantaloupe is not without value. It delivers vitamin A and vitamin C, it hydrates deeply, and its fiber supports digestion. Those are genuine gifts, especially in hot months. But as I have watched in clinic, once past 60, the balance shifts. I think of a gentleman who proudly chose cantaloupe every evening instead of dessert. He thought he was protecting his health. Instead, he grew cloudy after meals. His sugar levels bounced like a roller coaster, and sometimes his heart raced in the night. When he switched to a small serving of berries with a few almonds, his numbers steadied, his mood lifted, and he told me he slept better than he had in years. The message is not to fear cantaloupe, but to treat it with respect. Keep portions modest. Pair it with a little protein or healthy fat, and take special care if your kidneys are less than strong. When you want hydration with steadier energy, fresh berries or crisp apples are safer friends. And hold on, because the next fruit arrives in a crunchy disguise that feels harmless, but inside, it hides both sugar and fat working together against the brain. The golden crunch of banana chips can fool the eye and the tongue. Yet inside the body, they behave more like donuts than fruit. Most banana chips sold in stores are not simply dried. They are dropped into hot oil, coated in sugar, and packaged as if they were wholesome. The American Heart Association has long warned that trans fats created during frying stiffen arteries and raise the risk of heart attack and stroke. Harvard nutrition researchers add that when sugar joins those fats, the damage to blood vessels accelerates. It would not be honest to ignore the good side. Bananas are rich in potassium. They support muscles and nerves, and a trace of fiber survives the frying. Banana chips are easy to keep, easy to carry, and they feel like a natural swap for cookies. But here is what I see in clinic. For the older body that already faces slower metabolism and tighter vessels, the combination of fried fat and concentrated sugar is like laying down glue inside the arteries. I remember a gentleman in his early 70s who set a bowl of banana chips on the table every evening while he watched television. He never once thought of it as junk food, yet his afternoons grew heavy with fatigue. His balance wavered, and his thoughts became cloudy. When he traded that bowl for crisp apple slices and a handful of almonds, his afternoons brightened, his clarity returned, and he laughed that he no longer needed his daily nap. That is the gift of a small swap. The lesson is simple. Do not give up snacks. Choose snacks that give back. If you want crunch, let roasted nuts or fresh vegetables deliver it without coating your blood vessels in grease and sugar. Make the trade, and notice how your body thanks you. And stay close, because the next fruit wears the charm of a childhood memory, yet can clash with the very medicines meant to protect your health. Mulberries and cranberries often wear a halo of health, yet in the wrong form, they can quietly undo the very medicines that keep you safe. Fresh mulberries carry vitamin C and deep purple anthocyanins that guard the lining of blood vessels. But once dried, their sugars grow dense, and when they mix with diabetes drugs, the result can be a sharp swing from high to low blood sugar. The Mayo Clinic warns that these swings put heavy stress on circulation and on the brain's fragile vessels. I recall a woman who sprinkled dried mulberries over her breakfast each morning. Within weeks, her hands trembled, her mind blurred, and she felt worn down. She blamed the medication until we removed the mulberries, and the crashes disappeared. Cranberries carry a different reputation. The fresh berry is tart, protective for the urinary tract, and a fine addition to a balanced diet. Yet the dried version is nearly always coated in sugar, sometimes more sugar than berry. Harvard nutrition experts explain that just a small handful can match the sweetness of a candy bar, and repeated servings inflame vessel walls, making them stiff and narrow. I think of a man in his 70s who faithfully scattered dried cranberries over his daily salad. He believed he was adding color and health. Instead, he grew dizzy and fatigued until we traced the source. When he shifted to fresh blueberries, his energy lifted and his pressure calmed. The point is not to fear these fruits, but to honor the form in which you eat them. Fresh mulberries in season and unsweetened cranberries can offer benefits, but the sugared dried forms carry a hidden toll. If you crave sweetness with safety, let fresh berries be your companions. And keep listening, because the next fruit looks soft and golden, yet with every bite it can slowly harden the very arteries that feed your brain. A dried apricot looks soft and golden. A honeydew melon looks cool and refreshing, yet both can quietly speed up the aging of your arteries. Fresh apricots are full of vitamin A, vitamin C, and fiber that support vision, immunity, and digestion. But once the fruit is dried, its water disappears, and the natural sugar condenses into a heavy load. The American Heart Association reminds us that repeated sugar surges rob arteries of their elasticity and set the stage for atherosclerosis. I recall a woman who carried dried apricots in her purse, believing she had found the perfect low-fat snack. Over time, her blood pressure crept upward, and her afternoons grew heavy with fatigue. When she replaced those apricots with a fresh peach and a crisp apple, her energy evened out and her mood lifted. Honeydew tells its own story. Smooth on the outside, pale green and juicy inside. It feels like the lightest of fruits, yet its sugar content runs higher than its gentle taste suggests. The National Institute on Aging explains that, as the body grows older, it handles sugar less efficiently. That means a large bowl of honeydew can spike blood sugar and leave behind brain fog and exhaustion. I think of a man who blended honeydew into his breakfast smoothies each morning. He wanted clean energy, but instead he found himself cloudy and in need of extra naps. When he cut the portion to half a cup and added a handful of nuts, his clarity returned and his energy stretched through the day. The message is not to erase apricots or honeydew from your life, but to respect their form and their portion. Fresh apricots with water and fiber intact are kinder than the dried version. Honeydew in small amounts paired with protein can refresh without flooding your bloodstream. And listen closely, because the next fruit gleams like a jewel of summer, yet hides more sugar than your vessels can quietly bear. A pluot gleams like a jewel at the farmer's market, smooth skin that promises juicy sweetness. Yet one bite can deliver more sugar than a frosted pastry. This fruit is a deliberate cross of plum and apricot, bred to heighten sweetness far beyond its parents. The American Diabetes Association warns that fruits with concentrated sugar and fast absorption drive blood sugar into sharp peaks, and Harvard Medical School explains that repeated peaks push the pancreas into exhaustion while forcing arteries to tighten under pressure. To be fair, pluots are not without gifts. They provide vitamin C, fiber, and antioxidants that protect cells from damage. In small portions, they can be enjoyed as a seasonal treat, but in the older body, where metabolism slows and vessels grow less forgiving, that concentrated sweetness often causes harm. I recall a gentleman who believed he had made the perfect swap when he cut pie from his dinner table and replaced it with a sliced pluot. Yet his nights grew restless, his heart pounded, and his mornings were clouded. When he exchanged that pluot for a kiwi rich in fiber and gentle in sugar, his sleep deepened and his clarity returned. He told me he felt as though his body had finally been heard. The lesson is clear. Do not treat pluots as a daily snack. Treat them as dessert, enjoyed sparingly and ideally with a bit of protein or healthy fat to soften the blow. When you want steady sweetness, lean on berries or apples that deliver flavor with balance. And stay close, because next we will bring all of these lessons together and show how small changes in fruit choices can protect your brain, your heart, and your future. Now that we have uncovered the hidden side of these fruits, the truth is not that fruit is the enemy, but that our bodies change with age and call for wiser choices. What once felt harmless at 40 may carry a hidden cost at 70. The American Heart Association reminds us that it is the steady daily adjustments, not drastic sacrifices, that protect the heart and brain. The National Institute on Aging encourages us to lean on fresh fruits with their water and fiber intact, because they cushion the sugar and support digestion. The message is hopeful. You do not need to give up sweetness. You need to choose it in a form your body can welcome. Replace dried fruit with fresh, limit the extra sweet varieties, and pair your fruit with protein so the sugar slows. Think of each choice as a small gift placed into the hands of your future self. Those gifts accumulate into mornings that are clearer, afternoons that hold more energy, and nights that finally bring rest. I have seen lives change with these simple swaps, and I want the same for you. Tonight, before you reach for a snack, pause and ask a quiet question. Does this serve my health, or only my habit? That pause alone can redirect your path. And remember, you are not alone. Many people have faced the same surprises and found relief by sharing their stories. I invite you to add your own voice, because your experience may be the encouragement someone else needs. Together, we can turn these small adjustments into a movement of strength, clarity, and independence. Stay with this community, keep listening, and trust that it is never too late to begin again. Your brain, your heart, and your future self will thank you.